Hi, my name is Sabrina Welch, and I'm the founder of Mindtricks, the Magic of Neuroscience.
Hi, my name is Jazjot Padam, and I'm the fundraising director and photographer at Mindtricks.
And today we're so blessed to be here at Shrewsbury Media Connections to tell you a little bit about what Mindtricks is all about. Mindtricks, the Magic of Neuroscience is my youth organization that aims to teach neuroscience to kids through card magic. So what we do is we use card tricks and everything magic to act as analogies that are physical representations of what concepts of neuroscience might look like. We teach things like craniotomy, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, different principles of neurosurgery, different lobes of brains, brain lobe function, and even more. But what we aim to do is to make neuroscience accessible to kids and ultimately share the magic of neuroscience through something just as exciting as magic.
As a photographer, I travel around with my team to help support the team's pursuits and make education more accessible. As a fundraising director, I help manage funds and manage events for the team to help keep events going and help the team stay alive.
But today, in true magic show fashion, we'll be answering a couple of questions and tell you guys a little bit about what Mindtricks is at the core through some magic cards right here. So, Jazjot, would you like to help me out with the first trick or the first question by selecting a card?
Sure.
All right, wonderful.
What is your favorite part of being on Mindtricks? I would say my favorite part of being on Mindtricks is being able to use my skills in psychology, neuroscience, photography, and reaching out in advocacy to really help make a lasting impact on the world in a very unique way.
That's definitely great for sure. Yeah, Jazjot does such a great job with all of those things for sure.
Would you like to choose a card?
Yes, of course. Oh my gosh, it's so nice to be on the receiving end of a card trick over here. Okay. Best advice for starting a youth organization. Okay, this is definitely a great question. I think my best advice for starting a youth organization is to find your passions and identify them, and ultimately think about how you can use your passions and what you're interested in to ultimately make a positive change in your community. I think starting with something that you know is going to be very important to you is ultimately going to allow you to understand and connect with your issue that you want to address in a personal and motivated way. So that would be my number one tip, is to find what you're passionate in and ultimately initiate something that uses those passions to spark something exciting and important to you. And I think another practical tip is to also reach out to your community organizations. I think it's so beautiful, especially that I've learned with Mindtricks, is how willing the community is to really help out with things that they see that you're equally as passionate about. And there's so much passion in our communities as well, with so many different fields, and you can find something that can help match with your initiative as well to ultimately make a broader and greater change. And reaching out to people that are already established is going to help you with that as well. So I would definitely recommend reaching out to libraries for sure, and definitely reaching out to community events. There's a bunch of festivals that you can reach out to as well that are really great about accepting new vendors and new booths that can also help get your word out about youth organizations. All right, Jazjot, for trick number 2, would you like to pick a card?
My favorite show and why. So I would say my favorite show was the Boston event at the Boston Public Library, because it was my first time being on the train to Boston actually, and it was also my first event with Mindtricks in total. So it was an entire new experience for me, and I just remember that day from start to end, what everything felt like, how it went. And I just remember it being so much fun, meeting new people and working with new people and being able to showcase my skills.
For sure. Also, another benefit of going to Mindtricks is that you guys can get free boba as well. We all go and do team bonding activities too, which is always a nice plus.
All right.
Oh my gosh, okay, wonderful. This card in the middle. Okay, so why did I found Mindtricks? So the reason why I founded Mindtricks was truly because I want to be able to bridge the gap between in-depth and advanced resources for neuroscience, and also between having fun and engaging resources for kids. So I would definitely say when I was younger, I really liked going to a bunch of different STEM events, and my mom would take me to a plethora of diverse types of science events, and some of them were for more older kids and others were for my age. And I would say there was a lot of commonality in them, is that their number one common trait is that they shared a lot of great science resources with the community. But from going to the events that were more towards a older audience, I found that there was a lot more in-depth resources that were available that talked about a lot of in-depth neuroscience that I was really interested in. And that was something that was absent in the events that were meant for younger kids. Whereas the younger kid events, they were very fun and engaging and something that really caught my attention, but they didn't offer much beyond a very standard scope of what neuroscience had to offer. Whereas the other events that were for a little bit of an older student audience, they definitely gave that in-depth approach, but the only thing about them was that they were pretty hard to understand, which is understandable as they were meant for an audience that was older, that might already know a pretty standard background of what neuroscience was. So what I wanted to do was to be able to bridge that gap ultimately and make a very fun and engaging resource that also teaches advanced and high-level neuroscience to ultimately make one big resource that brings the best of both worlds together. All right, Josh, Would you like to pick a card?
My best camera advice. I would say my best advice for events like Mind Tricks is to make your photos look very candid. Try to take photos when nobody's really noticing them, to make it seem like whoever's viewing those photos is literally living in that moment. And it just makes it so much more wholesome and almost way more realistic for the viewers. Would you like to choose one?
Sure. Okay. What do you hope for Mind Tricks to inspire? I hope that Mind Tricks can not only spark a curiosity in neuroscience for the students that it can reach or the people that it can reach, but I hope it can also spark a passion for initiating action in people's communities. And I really hope that you can see that no matter the age that they are or whatever they think that they are capable of, they have so much potential and so much limitless capability that if they harness it and they harness what they're interested in, they can truly make an impactful difference in their community. And all it takes is just starting.
The coolest part of being on Mind Tricks. I would say the coolest part of being on Mind Tricks is you're able to apply for any role that fits your needs. It's not like you apply for roles that are only open. You can have multiple people playing the same role on the team. And the main benefit of that is, say you like photography a lot and you like neuroscience. We have multiple photographers, but you can always join Mind Tricks as another photographer. So I think the best part of Mind Tricks is that it's super flexible, and no matter what your interests are, no matter what your passions are, no matter what you want to be in the future, there's always a role for you, always a spot for you on Mind Tricks. Next question.
Oh, that's a good one too. Favorite trick. Okay. What's my favorite trick on Mind Tricks? I would say probably the trick that's about myelination. So one of the tricks that we have is about myelination, which is when your axonal pathways are going to be myelinated by something called a glial cell. And that is when your glial cell adds a fatty coating of insulation to your axon. And that allows for signal transmission to go at much more faster and more efficient rates. And that helps with not only your learning, but also your learning retention. And I think the reason why that's my favorite trick is not only I'm usually able to get it right, which is good. Sometimes I mess up my other tricks, but I think it's also my favorite because myelination is such an important part of education, and I think that that is our main goal at Mind Tricks is to be able to educate in the most efficient and way that can make people want to learn. So I think that that's probably my favorite trick. Stop. Two
Great.
left.
Why should people join Mind Tricks? I would say you should join Mind Tricks if you kind of want to open your mind up to new perspectives around the world. I would say even if you don't have a solid passion or interest in neuroscience, Mind Tricks is definitely a good way to kind of gain some connections, gain some friends. It really strengthens your, college applications because it's such a nice opportunity to have. But the main thing is that it really helps you gain hands-on experience in things you've never really may have experienced before. So I think that was one of my biggest motivations. And I think it's also what personally made me way more interested in neuroscience, and then psychology too.
For sure.
All right, 4 more.
Oh, thank you. Okay, what inspired me to create Mind Tricks? So what inspired me to create Mind Tricks was definitely probably my love for neuroscience, but also because I want to bring both in depth and advanced neuroscience to kids in a way that's accessible and exciting. And I think that a great way to do that is through kind of hacking the myelination pathway. So, a really cool thing about magic tricks actually is that when you're exposed to a magic trick, the region of your brain called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is activated to a pretty high amount. But what's great about that activation is that you can harness that to act as a cognitive stimuli to ultimately make your learning seem more engaging than maybe it might be at surface level. So in schools, typically there's a lot of lecture style learning, there's a lot of paper style learning or ways to learn that are more on paper or more so from a lecture or something like that. But what that type of learning lacks a lot of the time is cognitive stimuli that are enriching or something that really grabs your attention. So sometimes when you are using those methods to learn or to study, it can make your brain be a little bit disengaged. And that can make your learning a little bit harder to remember because your brain doesn't take that in as a reward. But with magic tricks and combining magic tricks with learning, what's really cool about that is that with having the magic act as a catalyst to keep your brain engaged, you're able to hook that curiosity and interest in the magic to making people think that the neuroscience is interesting and the neuroscience is something to remember within your brain because you're coupling a reward with your information. So I think that that was a big motivation too, is to bring a resource to the table that can show people how beautiful the STEM world is and how cool it is to really get immersed in the STEM world. Just
Why are you interested in neuroscience? So, I would say I'm interested in neuroscience because we think about the world using our brains. We do our everyday actions and tasks with our brains. And neuroscience is one of the very few fields that allows us to actually understand our own brains using our brains. And I think that's really cool, almost funny in a way. And it really helps me understand how I can kind of improve my life and improve um, the experiences and situations around me just by learning more about my mental health and my brain. What about you?
I also agree with the fact that it's so cool that your brain in neuroscience is really the only thing that you can study using that organ. And I think that's really cool how you can't say that for any other organ in the body. And I think not only that, but I also really like the blood brain barrier aspect of the brain, where it's so interesting how something that is meant to protect you and something that is ultimately a good thing can sometimes make it difficult when you may have diseases in your brain. So a tricky thing with the blood-brain barrier is that even though it acts as a really great part of the brain that of course you need to protect your brain against things that you don't want coming in, it also makes it pretty difficult for medicine to get into the brain when, say, you may need a brain tumor healed or treated or something like that. So I think that that was something that really interested me, is that like challenge to get into the field. All right, Josh, so hard to choose, I'm sure.
Um, my favorite mind tricks memory. I would say my favorite mind tricks memory would be maybe hopping on the train for the first time to Boston. Um, it kind of seemed a little bit scary for me because I thought the train station looked pretty creepy. Um, I've been to the train station to drop my sister off there a couple times, and I just thought it was like the creepiest thing ever, and I like could never go on that train ever. But mind tricks kind of forced me to kind of step out of my comfort zone in a way and board that train, and it was actually a really fun experience. Three more.
Did you perchance pick the last question, maybe? Okay, this one's kind of pretty similar. It's what is the most special part about Mind Tricks? I would say I think the most special part about Mind Tricks is definitely the people. I think that is both with the team members like Josh Trot here, but also the people that we're able to reach too. I think the best part about Mind Tricks is being able to really connect with your community, and from being someone that I think sometimes I'm pretty introverted, I think that Mind Tricks has given me a very good opportunity to be able to immerse into my community and ultimately be able to offer something that I think could be meaningful to them. And I think the best part to me about Mind Tricks is definitely the kids, for sure. Is it's so beautiful to see so many kids be so interested about something that they're learning about for the first time and ask so many questions or be interested in the magic or just be interested in general. I think it's really cool to be able to ignite something in someone through something that you're doing. And I think that that is definitely the most rewarding part of doing mind tricks for me, and definitely the most special part in my opinion. But Josh, what about you?
I would say, although it's an organization focused on neuroscience, it's very multifaceted, and I think, um, as I said earlier, even without an understanding or a very focused interest in neuroscience, you can really gain a lot of knowledge about how the world works, how the brain works, and how you think about yourself, how about other people. So I think Mind Tricks is like very, very unique and very empowering in a way.
Thank you so much to Shrewsbury Media Connections again for having us. We're so honored to be able to have shared our organization with you guys today. And thank you again so much for this opportunity. And
And
as
as
always,
always, magic
magic
is
is
meant
meant
to
to
be
be
shared.
shared.